Conferences were a really important part of the early gay liberation movement. At a time when people were still finding their way, it was important to get together to work out who or what homosexuality was, what it wanted from society, and how it was going to go about making changes. One of the more important of these conferences was one of the smaller ones, organised by a small group of women called Radicalesbians. This conference took place in July 1973 at the Whitehall Guest House here in Sorrento. Radical lesbianism arrived in Melbourne from England, a group of women who'd been there reading and talking and debating women's liberation. The ideas were desperately needed. After the early year or two of enthusiasm, gay liberation was starting to examine itself more closely. In particular, the role of sexism in the lives of men and the way in which patriarchal ideas had been internalised by women. It made it necessary to debate and think through these otherwise utopian ideas. The problem with men and their sexism meant that women often chose to organise themselves separately, and that was the case with the Radical Lesbian Conference at Sorrento. It was a women-only event. They had chosen the name Radical Lesbians for themselves, rejecting the other alternatives, camp and gay and women-identified women, because they wanted to emphasise, to provoke, and to be as confrontational as they could in their language. But one of the questions they had to face, or rather a whole set of questions, revolved around the problem of what was a lesbian and what was a radical lesbian. This was all done through the presentation of papers and debate and discussion amongst the 60 women at the conference. Questions like, should we be monogamous? Well, the answer was no, obviously. Monogamy was a patriarchal construct. But even that didn't solve problems in themselves. Was there a question of loyalty to our primary partners? Was what to do with the problem of jealousy? How to build equal relationships rather than hierarchic ones? The question of bisexuality, feminist culture, coming out. Could you be a lesbian if you hadn't had sex with a woman yet? As well as more conventional questions around abortion and the role of the church. The struggle would be long and hard, they realised this, but one of the issues was to live now differently as a step towards the process of achieving a radical social transformation. We will not set up copies of marriage, they said, of role-playing, of power dominance.